everyone to please make an effort to be safer on our roads so we don't lose any further loved ones, friends, neighbours or colleagues. Schools have reopened this month, roads are busier and there are more children walking and cycling to school. Drivers, slow down, put away your mobile phone and watch out for vulnerable road users. If you're walking or cycling, be seen and stay safe. Working together, we can save lives.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, as obnoxiously passionate about soccer as Frank Lampard after the final whistle. Gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Welcome back. It's Thursday's Off the Ball. Nathan with you until 10. It is 7:30, so it's time to talk to John Giles. Evening, John.
Evening, Nathan.
We'll get on to the start of the new Premier League season, but we might look back first on Stephen Kenny's first 2 games in charge of the Republic of Ireland. Results-wise, certainly not what he would have wanted, just 1 point from the 2 games against Bulgaria and Finland. In terms of learning about the players and planning for the playoff against Slovakia, do you think he'd have got what he wanted from the 2 games?
Well, he would have learned a lot, Nathan, but I think he would have expected better performances and better results. But that's the ideal. You don't get that. Well, most managers don't get when they're starting off like Stephen is starting off now, which means that you've got a group of players that you have ideas about who can play, who can't play, but you don't know and finally know until you see them play and see what's going on. So he's unfortunately only had 2 games in competitive competitions, Nathan. I think it takes managers about 6 to 8 matches to really get to know and are finally clear in your head what is your best team.
It does seem as though it is quite radical quite quickly what he's trying to do, and in fairness to Stephen Kenny, he spoke about this in advance that he wanted to change the way the team were going to play, a more possession-based style, maybe play the game on the front foot a little bit more, and he also changed quite a few experienced personnel. Seamus Coleman dropping out of the side for the first time in I think it was 8 years, James McLean dropping out of the side, Jeff Hendrick didn't play the second day. Was it all too much too soon? Would he have been better off sticking with the old guard a little bit longer and easing in 1 or 2 players, or is he doing the right thing and laying down a marker right from the start?
Well, I think he's got to try out the players, Nathan. That's why he could do it 6 to 8 matches before he goes into a competitive match. Well, that's not the case. The only thing I wouldn't agree with is the leaving Seamus Coleman out for Doherty. Because there's certain things you can look at that you can learn from the previous manager or the previous results. And one of the things that was outstanding in Mick McCarthy's second reign, was that the goals against were very, very good. In other words, I think the back 5 were very, very good, Nathan. They didn't give. Did you know how many goals they gave away?
Yeah, they conceded 5 in the 8 matches.
8 matches. That's very, very good. And I thought that all those players were good. And what I don't agree with Stephen is that he left Seamus Coleman out to bring Doherty in. Now, I think Doherty is a very, very good player, very fine player, particularly for Wolves, where he's playing as a wing back, Nathan. Now, in the matches where we only lost the 5 goals, we had a flat back 4. In other words, Seamus Coleman is not a wing back; he's a full back. And when you're playing, that's a different thing altogether, being a wing back, which Doherty is very, very good at.
Yeah.
So I would stick with what was proven to be solid in the back 5, because I don't think Doherty is as good a defender as Seamus Coleman is. And I think it's vital to defend and get the results from the back that we got in the previous matches. So I wouldn't agree with that. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
And I also believe that I think he's trying to play a what's the back at the back, Nathan. Playing, well, we used to call it the old offside.
Right, he's playing a very high line. Yeah.
High line. Well, first, I don't agree with a high line at all, because I think you're taking a chance all the time when you're going to get the people offside. It used to be known as the old offside trap. That's the way I would see it. And with the back 5 that we have, I don't think it's necessary to make a dramatic change like that and the Coleman situation. Now, I don't want to be too hard on Stephen in any way. I think you know, he deserves a run at the job. It's only the first 2 matches that he's played, and he'll get to know his best players as he goes along in the matches. In my own experience going to West Brom, for example, Nathan, I'd played against those lads for about 10 years, and I had at least 3 to 4 that I was totally wrong against, that I assumed they could do this, that and the other, and they couldn't. So you don't know until you actually see the players out on the field. You have ideas, like Stephen will have ideas who to play, but you don't know, Nathan, until you actually see them play. And he hasn't had that situation now. So it was very difficult for him, and I wouldn't pay too much interest. I wouldn't have too much interest in the results that he's had. It's a learning curve.
I understand where you're coming from when you look at the goals conceded statistic under Mick McCarthy, and 5 in 8 games is very impressive. But to counter that, Ireland only scored 7 goals in the 8 games in a group that included Gibraltar. And I suppose that is the worry when you look at the performances and how many chances Ireland gave up. There was a sense, I think, that everyone had that Ireland were very strong defensively. But was it actually that all those players had to do was defend, that they weren't expected to do anything else, that they sat incredibly deep, invited teams onto them, and that whereas if we were to score more goals, if Ireland are to score more goals under Stephen Kenny, he needs a bit more out of those defenders?
Well, you don't expect... Well, with respect, Nathan, I don't agree with that at all. You're not expecting the defenders to score goals.
But can you not expect them to create goals?
Which they did.
And can you not expect defenders to start attacks from deeper, to get on the ball a little bit more, rather than just a back-to-the-wall job?
Players, Nathan. No, defenders have to play. Defenders, their main job is to defend. When they win the ball, then they've got to give the ball to somebody. That's when the midfield players particularly come into it. But we're not strong in midfield. You have to go what you're strong with until you find that out. You know, you have to find out. What they did is concede the 5 goals was to play with those players and play in a cover position. There was no high line in those particular matches. So what I'd be saying was, well, don't go with a high line and don't go with different defenders because they've already done it. What you've got to worry about then is the midfield players and the strikers. That's a different situation altogether. But what you do with most teams is make sure your defence is good. And the defence in the last 2 matches haven't been as good as they were in the previous 5 matches. That's where I think that Stephen made a mistake. The other things he has to do, he has to see that quite rightly, they played a midfield 4, then he changed it for the next match, quite rightly, and some of the lads up front. That's what you have to do to find out. But if something is proven to be right, whether it be attacking or defending, then in my opinion, you stay with that.
He tried, as you mentioned, 6 different midfielders across the 2 games, changed the midfield. And I'm not sure if did any of the 6 really put their hand up and say, you know what, I got to start next month in the playoff against Slovakia?
I don't think so. I don't think any of the midfield situations worked, Nathan. So there'll be more trial and error in that particular area. I mean, what I'd seen, if I was picking the midfield now, and I don't have, I'd be starting like Stephen, I'd be starting from scratch. But what I'd have in my head is O'Dowda, Arthur, Brady, and McLean. That's what I'd have. That's what I would start with.
Right.
But there again, I'm not picking the team, because I think if we're not going to beat players from the middle of the field, Nathan. So the only players that we have, in my opinion, that are going to beat players is O'Dowda can beat players, and McLean can beat players. So I'd leave those 2 wide and get the ball out to them as much as possible. Because I think Brady is our best bet for picking a pass out. Arthur is industrious. But I don't think either of them are going to be outstanding midfield players of the calibre that we would like to have. So I would go with O'Dowda to beat the players and McLean to beat the players.
So you'd go with a 4 in mid. You'd essentially end up going with a 4-4-2 then?
Yes. Definitely. I wouldn't have the high line, and I would have Coleman in the team as a defender. I like Doherty. I like what he does for Wolves. He'll get you a few goals from the back position.
Yeah.
But it was different the other day. See, a lot of time I think he was trying to attack. See, when you're going to score goals tonight and you're like a forward, you have to think the best all the time. And for every 6 times you go in, you might only get it once. Now, if you're a goal-scoring fullback, that's the mentality Doherty has. so he can leave the defensive. He doesn't see his defensive duties, or in Wolves and anyway, he's encouraged to do what he does. But Ireland don't play with the wing backs, and it's proven to be successful in the previous matches they played under McCarthy because of the 5 goals only 5 that we conceded in the 8 games.
Stephen Kenny has said that he's quite pragmatic and that he's not wedded to one system in terms of that 4-3-3, but it does feel as though he's going to continue with it for probably the game in Slovakia and maybe for a few more of these matches before the end of the year. Is it possible?
I wouldn't be too sure about that, Nathan.
Right.
I think having looked at the matches, he might very well go back to the fullback situation. I don't know. I mean, Stephen is the manager. He's going to do. But I'd be surprised if he sticks with with Doherty in the wing back position as he plays it.
Yeah, but just in terms of the midfield then, because if he was to stick with what he went with the first 2 games and tried 3 in the midfield and either a James McCarthy at the base or a Harry Arter at the base, like if he wants to play that front foot football, maybe a bit more possession based, can he do that? It goes back to the whole, does he have the players with the skill set required for that type of midfield?
Well, if you play O'Dowd wide on the right and McLean wide on, you're not dependent that much on the midfield players to be creative because you have players to give it out to get on with doing their stuff down the wings, Nathan. I don't think we have a player in the group that's going to dominate from the middle of the field at all.
Yeah.
I think we're much of a muchness in that position, so that's why I would play 2 players in the middle and 2 wide, so as you give it out to the 2 players who can make progress from there. You see, if you look at the stats, Nathan, in the 2 matches, we had more possession of the ball than Bulgaria and Finland.
Yeah.
But keeping possession of the ball is one thing. You get it and you give it to the fullback, and you get it back and you give it to the other fullback. It doesn't get you anywhere. And actually, in the whole game of football at the moment, there are very few players. I mean, the ideal thing for a midfield player is to be able to beat and dribble past your opposing midfield player. It doesn't happen, or it very seldom happens. I watched England the other night, and they couldn't do it from midfield. They had Declan Rice and young Phillips from, and they were doing the thing. They get it, and there's no imagination.
Yeah,
in their game.
It's almost as if the coaching has changed and that's what they're telling midfielders to do these days.
Yeah, I think so, Nathan. I don't know what the reason is, but there's very few midfielders. I've hardly ever see it. And there's a lot of possession in the game. So when you see a match starting now, it goes back to the centre-back, over to the full-back, back across the pitch. And I know I might sound like an old timer talking about football, but some of it is unnecessary. You have to make progress. You don't win matches on stats. Like our stats in the 2 matches for possession of the ball was quite good, but we didn't look like scoring a goal, and that usually comes from midfield players. And I don't think we have midfield players that can go past players, but we have McLean who can go past and O'Dowd it. So you get it out to them and let them do those particular those jobs. That's the way I would see it. But obviously, if I was a manager, I'd have to play those players to see if it works, Nathan. You don't know. You have it in your head, this could happen. And Stephen hasn't got that luxury. I didn't have that luxury so far because he had to play players in his head, this is what they can do or this is what they can't do. So he's finding out about it. So I'd have great sympathy for him in that particular situation.
Stick with us, John. We do want to talk about the return of the Premier League. We'll take a quick break, though.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. More confident than United before a Europa League final. Gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
The Pat Kenny Show.
On tomorrow morning's programme, the death of mass killer Comrade Duch in Cambodia, but who was Comrade Duch? Jonathan Healy asks if this is the moment to reform the Leaving Cert. The search for clarity, parsing the latest guidance from NEFIT. Henry McKean goes walkabout with David Norris. New music and food, as well as all the breaking news.
The Pat Kenny Show.
Tomorrow morning at 9.
On News Talk.
There are plenty of reasons to get an official Volkswagen service, from the expertise of a Volkswagen master technician to the confidence in using only Volkswagen genuine parts. However, to the majority of drivers, only one reason really matters: what you get when you bring it all together, an official service history. In fact, 78% of Irish drivers would pay more for your Volkswagen if it has a full Volkswagen service history. Book your timing belt replacement from only €499 at volkswagenservice.ie. Terms and conditions apply at participating retailers for a limited time only.
It's often said about West Cork Distillers that it was built by the people, for the people. Started by 3 childhood friends in a back room in Cork, West Cork Distillers has grown into the largest independently Irish-owned distillery with award-winning products in over 70 countries. But John, Ger and Dennis never forget what got them there. Hard graft, skilled craft and the best local ingredients. Discover a proud West Cork heritage at westcorkdistillers.com.
Have you taken a mortgage payment break because of COVID-19? Is your payment break due to finish soon? Whatever your financial situation, your lender will be able to talk to you on how best to manage your mortgage repayments. It's important to engage with your lender and together talk through your repayment plan.
Visit www.paymentbreak.ie for the complete guide to coming off your payment break. This message has been paid for by Banking and Payments Federation Ireland.
Mega laptop sale now on at Curry's PC World. Save €200 on the Acer Aspire 5 14-inch laptop with 256GB SSD storage, now $639. Or get the HP Pavilion X360 14-inch 2-in-1 laptop with Intel Core i3 processor, now just $589. Get in store or online now.
At Centra, we have everything you need for back to school in our better than half price sale. Like Centra Fresh Irish Part Bone Chicken Breast 610 gram, now $3.45. Nature Valley Crunchy Oats and Honey Family 20 pack, now $2.94. And My Wadi Double Concentrate 1 litre range, now €1.70. Centra. Live every day.
The United Kingdom has left the EU. Businesses moving goods from, to or across Great Britain will face a range of new requirements, beginning on the 1st of January 2021. You need to act now to avoid significant delays and to minimise disruption and cost. Find out what your business needs to do to prepare now and what supports are in place. Go to gov.ie/Brexit, an initiative of the Government of Ireland.
Join the switching revolution at Carphone Warehouse today. We've got exclusive deals you won't find anywhere else. Like, get the Samsung S10 for only $49.99 when you switch to a €40 a month plan with Vodafone. Or get the Samsung Galaxy S20 5G with Samsung Galaxy Active Watch for free when you switch to a €60 a month plan with Vodafone. Carphone Warehouse, for the best deals on your mobile, TV and broadband. Offer subject to availability and 24-month contract.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. A more electric team-up than Salah and Mane. Gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Welcome back. It's Thursday's Off the Ball. We're talking to John Giles. John, Premier League back this weekend. Leeds are back in the big time, up against Liverpool on Saturday. And we've been, well, overrun with Leeds United legends this week because we were talking to your good friend Eddie Gray on Tuesday night.
Ah, yeah, he's a good lad, isn't he, Nathan?
Yeah, he's brilliant. We'd really good time talking to him. Lots of great nostalgia and a great storyteller. And considering we spent a lot of time talking about Eddie Gray over the last few years, we thought we might as well ask Eddie Gray about you. Here's what he had to say. And the great thing about having had John on the show is that that was an era of so many memorable teams, whether it was United with Best and Charlton, the Liverpool side that was emerging under Shankly, that great Celtic team. But I think Irish people probably know more about that Leeds side because of John than they do of any of those teams. And those names roll off the tongue, those names that you talk about. But the one man that actually we know little about from that time at Leeds is actually John Giles, because when he picks his all-time Leeds 11, he doesn't include himself. He'll talk about yourself. He'll talk about Billy Bremner. You might just give us what John Giles was like in 66, 67, 68, as both on the pitch and off the pitch.
Different people have different opinions about the game, you know. And, you know, when people say to me, who's the best player you played with? You know, and I'm splitting hairs. You know, I would come down in favour of John, you know. So John's been very modest when he says he wouldn't have been the best Leeds United 11. You know, I think all the players that I played with, I think that there's a good more than half the team would come down and in favour of John being the best player they played with. That's my opinion.
What was it about his game that made him so good?
Well, his knowledge of the game was tremendous. He had 2 great feet, a great passer of the ball, could score goals, could also get into great goal-scoring positions. I mean, when I played outside left and, you know, he would knock the ball to me, you know, but he would say to me before the game, don't forget, Eddie, I'm always just inside you, in the edge of that 18-yard box. You know, if you could buy somebody, you know, I'm always there. If somebody trying to cover the full-back, I'll always be available for you. Yeah, just his general knowledge of how to play the game. And his tremendous ability. I mean, John could do it all. He could win the ball. He could pass the ball. He could buy people in tight areas. You know, Billy had great feet round the ball. Terrific feet. But John had probably the better range of passing, you know. But that's no belittling Billy in any way, because I don't think I've seen many players that did a better range of passing with both feet than Johnny. I mean, the only other player, the player that I think is the best British player I've ever seen is Bobby Charlton. You know, and Johnny's no far off that mark to me.
I don't know if you needed an ego boost, John, but better range of passing than Billy Bremner and close to Bobby Charlton. It's not bad.
Well, I have to pay him for that.
You'll owe him a few quid, all right. There was about 10 minutes of that.
I'll send it on to him, Nathan.
Do. Yeah, you obviously, listen, we got into, as we've done quite a bit recently, talking about just how brilliant that Leeds side were. And great to have them back in the Premier League as well, John. And funnily enough, it's Liverpool they go to, Liverpool as champions. And I think when you were with Leeds, when you came up from the second division, the first game that Leeds played back in 1964 at Elland Road was against Liverpool, who were the champions at the time. Yes,
they were the champions. We had the first match away to Villa, which we won, and then on the Wednesday night we played Liverpool, and we beat them 4-2, Nathan.
Yeah, you got a goal.
I got a goal that night, yeah. Then we went to Anfield the following week, and they beat us 2-1. So it was a great start, obviously, for Leeds at that time. They'd been out of the first, what was then the first division, for a long time as well, Nathan. You know. So to get the start that we did and went on, I mean, that was at the end of that season, Liverpool beat us in the cup final. That went on from 64 to 65, and Liverpool beat us for the first time they ever won the cup. Actually, but we finished above Liverpool in the league that year. We were pipped by Manchester United at that particular season, and I think we finished. They beat us on goal difference, Manchester United. So. Right. That was a huge season for Leeds, going back into the first division for the first time. Runners up in the league and runners up in the cup. But Liverpool then went on to win the league the following year, Nathan.
A win then so early in the season against the Liverpool of that quality, and looking at that Liverpool side, that Ron Yates, Ian Callaghan, Roger Hunt, Ronnie Moran was playing, Jerry Byrne was there. Like, coming up from the second division, that must have been a hell of a confidence boost.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Because when you come up, like when we promoted, actually, I was one of the few players, I think Big Jack, had played in what was then the first division. I mean, the likes of Norman Hunter and Paul Reaney, I don't know if Billy ever did, all young players, Norman Hunter, Terry Cooper, this was all new to them. I was one of the few, and I think I was only 23 when we got promotion. So it was a very, very young team. And to do what we did and get the start we did, which was great, Nathan, and we kept it going, was down to the fighting spirit that the Leeds had with Don Reeby from day one. And as when we got better, the reason we got better, we got players in like Alan Clark and Mick Jones, and the players got older, obviously, and better as we went along. But always had a good spirit from day one, Nathan.
What was Don Reevy like on a day like that, when you're going up against the champions, you're going up against Bill Shankly, he's going up against Bill Shankly? Was for a huge game like that, was he different in any way from a regular match? Not really. He demanded, first of all, effort. That was his starting point, and a belief in the team, even though they were young players, to go out and have a go. So he used to be pretty nervous,
Nathan, himself. He's a very superstitious man, Don. Very superstitious. I mean, there was a rumour at the time that there was a curse on the ground, that the ground took over for some gypsies or something years and years ago, and he got some gypsies in to lift the curse.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm from Mayo, so I know all about curses. You don't need to tell me.
14 years, Nathan.
Yeah. Well, here, listen, Leeds may well go and beat Liverpool this weekend, but I don't think they're going to go on and challenge for the title regardless of how they do. But to have Leeds back, I think it's 15, 16 years. And just on Eddie Gray, because we touched on it with him on Tuesday night, he's Mr. Leeds United. He's been there as a player, as a manager. He's still there as an ambassador. It must have been particularly tough for him at that stage when he was sort of thrown in as caretaker manager, and he's the one who's there in charge in 2004 when they're relegated. Yeah, well, it was an impossible task for Eddie. He just happened to be there at the time, Nathan, like as you say, he's Mr. Leeds United. He's been there for a long, long time as a player, and he's still there doing a lot of work, and very, very popular lad, as you can imagine, around the club with the supporters, and been there for a long, long time. He does a great job generally. And he's, as you know, you met him or spoke to him. He's a great lad, Eddie. Marcelo Bielsa confirmed finally today that he's going to stay on as manager for next season. He signed his contract. Any expectations for Leeds, or should it, even though the size of the club and people see them still as one of the big powers of English football, is it just about survival? I would think so, Nathan. I mean, that's your starting point. Survive and then see how you go from there. I think they've made a couple of signings which they needed to do, because watching them playing last year, I watched them playing at Arsenal in the Cup, and for the first 45 minutes they were absolutely brilliant. Yeah. But they couldn't score, Nathan. I think that happened to them a lot. Like when you're on top of football, you have to be scoring, you have to be getting rewards for a good play. And I think that didn't happen to them. So hopefully, if they get somebody in that's going to score a goal, or they do score more goals, I think they'll be okay. From what I've seen, I think the attitude of the manager is good. He's not going to be playing, tight and defensively when he has an opportunity to attack. And I think that's what they'll do. And particularly at home, I would expect them to do well at home with the crowd behind them and that, Nathan. They've obviously signed Rodrigo, the Spanish international, who they'll be hoping will be the one who'll get them the goals. In terms of the title race, we're only 6 weeks since the end of the last season, but it was a strange end for those top teams where we all knew Liverpool were going to go and win the league when football restarted. They bought a left back and that's it. Is that enough for Liverpool to kick on and win it again? I think so, Nathan. It depends on their attitude, which I would be amazed if it isn't the same as it was last year. I think the dark horses next year could be Chelsea. Right. You're impressed with the signings they've made? Well, I don't know, though. I wouldn't be that familiar with them. But the fact is they've spent a lot of money, and you wouldn't expect them to be buying duds for the amount of money that they're paying, Nathan. And they have a good base as well. I think they have a good base at Chelsea this year. I think he did a good job with them. But if he gets the players in that he decides, well, I'm sure he has, that he wants, they could be the dark horses. A lot of speculation today that N'Golo Kante might be on his way out. Inter Milan are in negotiations. I know he had injury problems last season and Lampard didn't seem to quite know how to use him. If you want to be winning the league, you would imagine a player of his experience and calibre is someone you want to keep around. I'd be amazed, Nathan, if he's sold. I'd be absolutely amazed. I know he had a lot of injuries last year, but any game I saw him playing in, he was brilliant again. Yeah. These guys don't come along every 5 minutes. Somebody who's going to give you everything in every game they play. Just for examples alone, in the club, oh, no way. I think if I was selling any of the players at Liverpool, at Chelsea, he'd be the last one to go, Nathan. Definitely. I can't see that at all. I mean, if you're spending a lot of money to get players in, and you've got what I think he's still, like he had a lot of injuries last year, I think he's still the most valuable midfield player in the Premiership. I know you've spoken before about when Leeds won the title and maybe not knowing how you were going to start the next season. What are you looking out for with Liverpool then in terms of attitude in these opening weeks that suggests to you that actually, they still have that desire there to go and win it back-to-back.
You know from the first match, Nathan, and I'd be surprised if I think Klopp is brilliant at in this particular situation, that he'll demand it. He'll say, forget about last year, it's gone, which it is, obviously. This is what I expect again. And he's got a big enough squad, you see, to change it round. Yeah. I know, like you're saying, he didn't buy, but he didn't need to buy. He's in a very lucky position.
You think those young players can step up? Yes,
definitely. Definitely. I wouldn't have any doubts about them. Nathan, what we saw of them playing last season, when they played in the cup ties at Villa and one or two other places, they were excellent. You know, this wasn't just ordinary young lads. And don't forget, you only need 2 or 3 at a time at the most to come in with the big players. And I'd have no doubts about them whatsoever to step up to the mark.
All right. John, you're going with Liverpool for the title again. We shall see what happens, and we'll talk to you again next Thursday night.
Yeah. Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks a lot, John.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Sign up for News Talk Extra, our email newsletter straight to your inbox. newstalk.com/extra.
Isn't it curious that every member of your family has a different voice? That a baby can recognise their mother's voice from inside the womb? That identical twins have the exact same vocal cords but usually don't sound similar? And teenagers can sense the tone of